Hello, everybody. I talk a lot about feedback and, give you the process for giving it, talk about its importance. But I thought I would take the opportunity today to look at a scenario where feedback is warranted, and then I can show you how I would give it. And I like this one because it's somewhat a difficult conversation. It's an awkward conversation, and some people may shy away from feedback because of that. So I want to show you how I do that. Inc. magazine has a columnist, Allison Green. She's fabulous. You should read her if you can. She answers questions from managers, and her answers are always excellent. Many times I look at it and go, that's exactly what I said. Other times where I look at it and go, that's not what I would have said, but I understand her point. And that's a good thing to consider. So definitely read that. She had a letter the other day that I thought was fascinating, to me was a great example of how you should give feedback and in a situation where it's warranted. I'll put a link in the description to the article in case you want to go read the whole thing, but here's a bit of a breakdown. So she has a manager, this person has a manager working for them that's been hiring people. The team is performing well, but people are talking about the fact that every person this manager hires is physically attractive. Not okay, but physically attractive. No one's filed a complaint. There's no evidence that there's discrimination going on or anything like that. But people are starting to talk, which means it's something that a manager might want to address with the employee. In fact, I think it's a perfect situation to address with an employee. First point I want to make. This is perfect for feedback. To our knowledge, the manager hasn't done anything wrong. They haven't done discrimination that we know about. Just so happens that all of these candidates are attractive. And it may be that those were the best candidates for the role. We don't know. But the fact that people are talking about it tells me that this is something that needs to be addressed. Yet, it doesn't have to be changed. Remember, feedback is an option. Feedback is where you mention something and you ask them to do something. But they may decide to ignore that feedback. And this is the perfect case of that. If it comes out after you give the feedback that, no, these are the perfect people, I'm not hiring them simply because of their looks, then nothing has to be done. If it were a case of discrimination, you found that's not feedback, that's an order. So that's why this is a perfect thing for feedback. Second point, this is an observable behavior. You're not talking about that internal bias. You're talking about a observable behavior. Hey, I noticed that everyone you're hiring is physically attractive. And that's not a problem, but it's something I want you to think about, right? You've actually got an observable behavior that you can point to, which is always a key to feedback. Third point, there's an impact. People are talking, right? Again, no one's making accusations, no one's making, threats or filing complaints. But the fact that people are talking tells you that this is an issue to them, that this is something that's come up, that you need to address with this person and make sure they're aware of it, and have the confidence to be able to go back in case someone does say something to support your manager. Right? There is an impact. You can talk about the image things, and you're not making an accusation. So here's what I would say to the manager. And let's just say, for the sake of this example, his name is James. I'd say, James, can I share some feedback with you? I've noticed that all of your recent hires could be described as physically attractive, and the performance of your team is fine. I don't want you to think that that is the issue. My concern is that some people may start to think that you are using looks as a hiring criterion. An image of being discriminatory in that way, in this case on looks, is not anything that any of us wants. Could you think of any potential hidden biases in hiring in the interview process that you should be aware of? And if you find any, what are some things that we can do to alleviate that? Thanks. Now, because this is something that, could be awkward or difficult, I would prepare for any pushback from Jim. Just simply keep it professional and say, I'm providing feedback. I'm not making accusations. I don't think it's a performance issue. But there are times that we need to consider things simply because of the outside impression. If you come back to me and you say, that's not the case, I've really thought about it and analyzed it, and that's not the case, I'm great with that. I'm not telling you have to change anything. I'm simply asking you to think a little deeper. If James comes back and says, no, I'm totally comfortable with the hiring process, there's no bias, these just happen to be the best candidates, I say, okay. And I let it go. He also may come back and say, you know what, I hadn't noticed that, but I did think, maybe there is some bias there that I'm not aware of, and here's some things I think I can do and we can do in the hiring process so that I can ensure that's not the case in the future. It's important to note that this whole discussion is not about a performance issue. And that's something you may need to reiterate multiple times. Performance is good. We have no indication that performance is bad. This is just something I want to make sure that we should have to self-reflect. We have to evaluate sometimes. And I'm going to I'm giving you this feedback. If it were something serious like performance, it would be a much bigger coaching issue. I wouldn't leave it to just feedback. Hopefully this gives you a good picture of how feedback works, when you can use it, how it can work effectively in difficult or awkward situations, and why it is such a good tool.